Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session where we meet our alumni. Right? Let me introduce the alumni to you. On my left, directly on my left, is Miss Karis Liao. She graduated with a degree in accountancy and is now the director of the Singapore Digital Assets Exchange. But you will know her from her founding, right, of a Singapore startup called Mintrust. Mintrust is the platform with which you bring organizations, individuals, right, together in a platform and open up the capital markets, right, so that they can get funding for whatever projects that they are doing, right. But more importantly, Karis personifies, right, what Robert Frost in his poem "The Road Not Taken," right, talks about. Right. She was an accounting grad, but moved on to be an entrepreneur, and at that, a technological entrepreneur. On Karis's left is Mr. Han Chong Liang. He is from the class of 2019, Bachelor of Business, specializing in banking and finance. He is now an investment strategist with the Standard Chartered Bank. Right. On Chong Liang's left is Mr. Leslie Lee. Right? He's the baby of the group. He graduated in 2020 with a double degree in accountancy and business, and his business specialization was in banking and finance. Well, if you joined us this morning, we had a whole discussion with Mr. Lawrence Wu, right, who was the founder of Sunseed, another entrepreneur, and he graduated about the same time as Karis with an accounting degree. Right? So we have many in our pool who have gone beyond what they majored in school, and that's part of what we will be discussing today. So in the meantime, we have your Slido QR code, right? And please post your questions, right, for our alumni, right? And we have already received some, but let me start off asking the panelists, and maybe we'll start with Karis and then move downwards. Right? As an alumni of MBS, can you share some of your most memorable moments with us in school, either at NTU, NBS, the halls and CCAs, whatever?
Yeah, okay. Firstly, Prof. Neiman, thanks a lot for inviting me here today. It's really an honor, and I'm very glad to be back here at NTU again, MBS. So I actually graduated about 20 years ago, so really a very old
I didn't say anything.
alumni, yeah, so I think that's fine, it's good to clear the air. Yeah, so kind of like really looking back, and at my university days, I think the thing that really stuck me the most was really the life here in the school, right? Because, beyond the education, beyond, attending great classes and projects and things like that, I think something that really stuck on through the years is really the friendships that has been formed through the school. So when I was here, I had the opportunity to stay in the halls. So that's where, it's kind of on campus, and transport was really not an issue, right? Because you're really very close to your classmates, close to your school. And because of this close proximity with friends, there were always a lot of gatherings, right? And I very vividly remember like Friday gatherings together. People would just hang out together. You could be whoever is around would just gather, maybe at the canteen or in each other's dorms, for example. And that's where friendships are formed. And you meet people beyond your choice of course, right?
Correct.
Because you get people across different faculties, across different specializations coming together to talk about, what happened in their days or some of their activities that they've been doing. So I think that friendship stayed on, and even to today, some of my closest friends are actually from the university.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really quite a blessing, and I think this is really something that is extremely memorable for me.
Yeah. So I know the halls. Do you remember which hall you were in?
I was in Hall 11.
Right. Yeah. Do these halls still have like a specialization, like the sports hall and the cheerleading hall and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent there's still some labels.
Right.
Like some halls are better in certain areas and stuff. But I think in general, it's rather holistically developed, right? Even though you're strong in a particular area, doesn't mean that you neglect. You still have those activities going on. And yeah, if you have interest in other activities, and so irregardless which hall you're in, right, you have exposure to everything.
So what was your memory?
Oh,
Of the
defining
best memory of.
Okay, I'll be lying if I say my memorable moment is in halls or in lectures halls or in classrooms. But I think building on to Carrie's point is that I think for me is the time that I spend with my friends, and that includes whether locally in halls or in seminar rooms or in the times that we spend maybe just chatting, reminiscing back in the room that we have at home, or even the activities that we do, right? And that could include some of the community activities, CIP's program, or it could include some of the orientation camps activities that we had. So I would say these are the things that I kept with me, right, till this day. And to be very frank, I can't remember whatever that any of the prof that taught me. I'm very sorry, but then yeah, I would say these are the memories that I've kept with me till now.
Leslie?
Yeah, actually similar. I would say, perhaps in addition to what both of them has said, I think what NTU has on offer that I really remembered were all the student clubs that I actually took part in. Took part in quite a few, of course, and that kind of stretched myself, not just in terms of the friends and the networks that I've built, but also in terms of the things that I see and learn about the world. I think one good example would have been the Welfare Students Club, Welfare Services Club, sorry. So I was actually part of the program that organizes an overseas expedition to a country of our choice. And during that entire trip, it was all self-planned by the whole community and self-executed. So that really allowed me to see a global perspective of what life is like out there beyond the confines of our education, and really to give back in our own very small way to the community at large. So that was really one of the most exciting and memorable moments, in school.
It's nice to hear that, because one of the values that we cherish at the business school is service, right? And like the welfare club, right, does a lot of the service. The other two being growth and innovativeness, right? So given that these are the values that we probably have developed and reinforced in our students, how have these values played out in your lives, your personal and your career lives? Anyone?
Yeah, maybe I can start first and take the question. So I think maybe I'll focus on the growth part. I think back in NTU, right, I think a lot of professors always encourage us to learn outside of curriculum, right? What the school provides you is really just the base, right? And I would even argue that I think whatever you learn in school is definitely not sufficient, right, for the outside world out there, right? Probably it's going to form maybe 10 to 15% of whatever that you need in the outside world. A lot of the time you need to explore outside curriculum, and the reasons are plenty, right? It could be due to constraint of time, or basically just there isn't enough resources to really teach you all this stuff. And what the school encourages is really for you to explore, and this can be via a lot of channels, right? One thing is that I think our career officers have did a lot of different have provided a lot of opportunities, right, in regardless whether it's via attachments, right, can be a one-day shadowing with some companies, or it could be via internships, right? Internship opportunities are plenty in NTU, and the good thing about MBS, I think, is that we have access to two career offices, right?
Yes,
if I'm not
do.
wrong. So one is our internal MBS career office, and also the greater NTU career offices. So really the opportunity is there, right? And I still vividly remember my email inbox being bombarded with a lot of this opportunity, and maybe just one advice is that really do read all these emails, because they are very, very valuable. Yeah. I think maybe Cherise?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, from a growth and innovation and service perspective, definitely I see that through in my career. So obviously I started my career in banking, which was like the first stop that I did immediately after I graduated from accountancy. And through that, I've actually understood a lot in terms of, the basics in terms of, whether it's accounting, legal, even technology and all that was kind of honed through the undergraduate curriculum that I had here. And it was a very good foundation for me to go into the banking world. And that kind of built on together with experience, in doing real life transactions, interacting with clients, working on, international deals and all that. That actually built a lot of knowledge and experience into my career. And that was also the foundation in which I started, and I basically took the lead into starting my own business, right, and into fintech itself. So I started this business called Mintrust in 2016, and that was even before fintech was a buzzword then.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was really, with a mindset that, hey, I want to make a difference. I want to bring people together. I wanted to help companies who were not able to secure funding in a traditional way through banks, through a network of other fellow single-minded individuals who are happy to support and help innovative companies. So it's really about bridging the gap and bringing people together and using technology, which was something that I learned as well in school, to enable this, right? So that, going forward, people don't need to always, have, go through the traditional methods to secure financing. Yeah, so I think all of that growth and innovation, to be honest, it also came through, the undergraduate,
Programs,
which was that kind of NDA of
the DNA of the
DNA,
school.
DNA of this, yeah.
And it's good that you mentioned about the DNA, because one of the questions on Slido is how would you describe the school culture at NBS? And given that we have at least almost two different, I won't say generations, two different perspectives, right? If you can reflect and share with us, what was the school culture like, at least from the student perspective back then, right? When you were in school, right? Because there's a lot of talk about school being very competitive now, very almost cutthroat, right? So I'd like to see, let the people know, right, what that was like for you.
Okay, for me, I think I felt that it was very collaborative.
Yes.
Because people, for me, it was a lot of friendships that I experienced in school. So, it's really through the friendships that, you guys decide like, oh, I'm going to attend this course at this time together,
Yes.
right? And then project works as
Yes.
well. I think we were talking about it a bit earlier. And I think that kind of collaborative nature, of course, when it came to exams, of course, it can get a bit competitive in that sense that everybody wants to score well, right, for yourself. But at the same time, we do share notes. And if there are any challenges and all that, there are people around to help and to support.
Actually, over the years, it really hasn't changed, to be honest. To be fair, competition is something that is kind of, we can't really escape from that in Singapore.
Inevitable.
Yes, correct. It's rather inevitable. But I do agree that within this competitive culture, there is also that sense of collaboration and the genuine willingness of our peers to actually help each other, help one another out, whenever we meet with difficulties. And I would say that the school culture is really vibrant. There are a lot of things happening at the same, like every day actually. I do remember last time when I was back in school and there was no COVID, right? We do have a lot of student activities. The hallway, the corridor outside of our canteen. There are always things happening. It's very, very happening. And like for example, live bands, people selling merchandise for fundraising, for example. So I never had a boring day, back in school, especially just walking with my friends and chatting along the way. Yeah, so it was fantastic for me.
Yeah, just to add on to what Leslie has said, I think no doubt, right, it's going to be competitive, but I do view this as a friendly competition, right? How among competition you and your friends or your classmates help one another to outcompete the rest that's in other school. And I still remember like one particular moment in my year 2, right? Year 2, that's when a lot of the penultimate students will go out there and try to find internship, hopefully be able to get some conversion out of it. And for me, because I'm in the banking industry, there's a very competitive space. And of course, right, there are, the banks are always hiring, and they have a very rigorous selection process. And I remember one of my friends actually went for the interview first, the assessment center first. But he wasn't very stingy, right? When he came back, he shared with me all the questions, and he helped me, right? So eventually, even though I got through, but he didn't, he was very, he wasn't being very salty about it. He was in fact very generous, and in fact now he's in a very good place. So, but the point I was trying to make is that is even though it's competitive, right, in the whole culture-wise, but there isn't any backstabbing, and people are very willing to help, especially your seniors, right? I think, especially when I was a senior or when I was a junior, I received a lot of help.
Yeah. All the seniors knows, right?
Yeah, the knows wise. They're always not stingy to share whatever they know, and most important, and maybe the prof shouldn't know, but some of the hacks, the tips, how do you get?
We know.
Yeah, so the seniors are very helpful, and and I think that's one thing that I really appreciate a lot, right? And as a freshman, right, you probably helpless, but when you came into school and everything, and all these help are very precious and valuable.
And just now when we were talking, that coming into the school, we already have a few orientation camps, right?
That's right.
That form almost like, the word that you all used was bloodline, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to share with them, because that's part of MBS culture.
Yes.
Correct.
Go ahead.
And actually, I think one thing cool about MBS during our time, I'm not sure if it's still applicable, but I'm sure it is that every student is guaranteed an orientation opportunity.
Yes,
if
still
they,
is.
Yeah,
Still
correct.
is.
So that's cool. We don't only have one camp. In fact, we have 5 camps during our time. To make sure that happens, and each camp brings its own very unique selling point. To the orientation program itself. So, for example, for my orientation program in Flamari, we actually don't just do the typical bonding or orientation activities. We do have we do have corporate liaison sessions. Where we actually tie up with companies, startups, for example, to go down to their office, speak to their people, and kind of understand what it's like to be in the corporate life. And you imagine that kind of exposure right when you step into our orientation program. So I think that's really, really cool. And perhaps Zhong Lai, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I was in a very different camp from Leslie. I was in Camp Color Splash. So again, the proposition is very different. So for Color Splash, the proposition is very much the final day where we have kind of finale event, something like Color Run, if I can liken it to something else, right? It's like a color run, but then it's the final day where we have a lot of very fun activities involving all these paints that we'll bring in. So again, what the point maybe that to share over here, the takeaway is that there are options, right? The varieties, and depending on what you want or what you're interested in or what you're looking for, there are a lot of options you can look at, right? So it's not that business school we are just looking at purely business stuff. There's really a lot of variety, a lot of things out there.
I think then this goes to this question: why choose NTU? So beyond the camps, beyond the culture, right? Why did you all select, accountancy or the double degree of business as your choice?
I think for myself, I chose accountancy probably because of 2 reasons. The first was really, a lot of it was because of the influence of my parents.
Okay.
My dad was actually an accountant. Yeah, and both my parents actually graduated from NTU. And previously it was known as, I think, Nanyang
Technological
University.
Nanyang U.
Yeah,
Wow.
very, very long time
Yes,
ago.
okay.
So obviously they had
Those were the
fantastic
originals.
things
Yes.
to say about.
Couldn't relate.
Yeah, I cannot relate, so it's okay.
Haven't had the name.
And I guess partly because of the influence, and also for me, I enjoyed math as a subject when I was studying, right? So I think from an accounting perspective, of course, there are a lot of opportunities and options being an accountant in all aspects, right? I mean, every company needs a finance department,
Right.
Whether you're a banker, an economist, or even in a management role or as a CEO, you do need to be able to read and understand financial statements,
Yes, of course.
that is impossible to escape from if you were to do something on your own, right? And even from a career perspective, in senior positions, you do need to be able to understand numbers, and how do you analyze and evaluate financial statements. So I think that was one of the reasons why I chose accountancy as a degree.
Right.
Obviously, you know, it is a very specialized skill set, and that from a career perspective, at that point in time of choosing, kind of was something that I thought would support me or help me, you know, when I graduate. Yeah.
So then what aspects of our program then leaped out at you when you were making the choice, and then was it confirmed when you were in the program?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously when I chose accountancy, I wanted to learn, you know, the kind of like basics, right, of accountancy and all that stuff. But I think something that kind of was very refreshing for me was actually I got the exposure to learn beyond, right? Because there were other courses, for example, legal, I think business communications,
Yes.
technology and all
Yes.
that. I thought that was extremely useful because even to today, it's very relevant. It's extremely relevant, right? It's more than just, you know, being able to produce a set of accounts.
Yep.
You know, you need to understand, you know, the legal framework behind certain things, legal contracts.
Yes.
You know, you need, and especially from a business perspective,
Yes.
that's extremely relevant. You know, how you communicate through writing an email,
Yes.
for example. I think that is that's very important.
I think even today in today's program, right, in today's curriculum, we do still emphasize just that, the communication. It's no use, you know, while we are going in a very, I won't say very, but as we move towards a more quantitative curriculum, right, in whichever specialization you are in, at the end of the day, it's still that communication, right,
Correct.
to the decision maker that is very important, and that's what we are trying to emphasize, right? So yeah, in that
Absolutely.
sense, you're making, you just validated, you know, our approach to this. Chong?
Yeah, so I think my story is very much quite similar to Carrie's. And for me, maybe I'll take the first question, the first part of the question first. Why business? So for me, I was pretty passionate about financial markets back during the National Service days, and I'm quite sure that I'm going to do finance, and we're going to go into the finance
So
industry.
you were very sure from the get-go?
Yes, actually, even way before coming to NTU itself, I was pretty sure, right, it's going to be a business degree.
Okay.
I'm going to major in something finance.
Okay.
It's just a matter of which school it's going to be.
So you
right?
had clarity. So where did that clarity come from?
Oh, okay. So I think it's by luck or by opportunity is that during national service, some of my bunkmates, they were very active traders, I would say, in the financial markets, and I mean through the engagement with them, because we stay together and stuff, and I just grew an interest into this area. That's when, that's when I knew that was something that's for me, and of course, right then, it segues into the second part of the question is why NTU, right? Out of the three. I think for me, some of the criteria that I have right back then, one is that I really wanted whole life. So that eliminated one of the option, right, out from the pool that I have, right, and it's down to two. And then I think what stood out for me for NTU is that it's a 3-year program,
Right.
for a single degree, right? It's a 3-year program, and if you're more ambitious and do a double degree, that's 4 years. It's only 4 years, right? In other schools, you're probably only be able to get 1 degree with 4 years. So really that stood out a lot for me. And I have to also say that some people might be wondering, hey, does it mean there's going to be a compromise in terms of the rigor of the curriculum? I have to answer, it's definitely, I don't see a difference, right? Especially now going into the corporate world, our friends, colleagues from other schools, I don't see a huge difference in terms of in terms of being compromised in terms of the rigor. And so 3 years is to me, is a very good selling point, right? It's a very attractive point, and you're not compromised in terms of the things that you're going to get away from business school. And most importantly, right, you have a 1-year head start. over your
That's true.
peers,
That's true.
right? And in economics, we learn about opportunity cost, right? So yeah, there are a lot of opportunity costs in 1 year, right? The 1 year less of school fees you have to pay,
Yeah.
right? And 1 year extra salary you're gonna get, and 1 year of experience, right? And that could be a differentiating factor of whether you get a promotion or not.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes
Yeah.
experience matters. So yeah, that I think is what stood out for me. But maybe for Leslie, from double degree perspective, how do you think it differs?
Okay, for me, I think I'm actually the total opposite.
Okay.
I didn't know at the point of my NS what I wanted to do. I only knew what I didn't want to do. So like things like being a doctor, being a lawyer. Of course, they are great professions, definitely, but it's not something that I naturally am inclined towards. So with that, with a lot of elimination, I came down to business. It's a general degree, and I don't see that as a disadvantage at all. In fact, being pursuing a general degree allows us to see different perspectives and different matters all at the same time. And I thought that that was something that perhaps could be helpful for me in the future. And of course, I understand apart from the general track, NTU does offer the specializations. So during my time, we had around 6 specializations to choose from, and that allowed us to really understand what we kind of wanted to do at a later stage of our life, vis-a-vis NS, of course, and then from there commit to that and see and have a more in-depth study of that area of interest. And I would just like to emphasize one point about the rigor. Definitely, the academic rigor that NTU provides, I would say, is second to none. Definitely so for the accounting degree. Definitely. In terms of the technical skills and the technical abilities that accounting graduates will need, NTU is I would say one of the only schools that can provide sufficiently to the level that is what the corporate world would require of
Demand.
us.
Yep.
Yeah, and definitely when I go out there, in terms of technical abilities, I definitely am confident, when going for interviews or at work, that I am, because of the education that NTU provided, I am definitely one of the better ones out there.
So then this goes back, this feeds into a question that somebody posted. Will I be able to have a work-life balance in NBS or NTU? Right? So, I mean, you already alluded to just now,
Yeah.
right, that you all had enough time to play, go do your social service clubs and in the halls and all that. But within the classroom and within at least the curriculum context, was it a pressure cooker?
In fact, I would say I sometimes I feel that I have too much of the live portion rather than the work. Okay. Yeah, but maybe to answer the question, I think I definitely don't feel a pressure, right? At least on the academic sense, and I think what helps with that is that whenever the lecturers of the professors they impart knowledge to us, and in fact, some of the lecturers are practitioners, right?
Yes, they are.
People in the industry, and it doesn't feel like they are just, regurgitating what's from the slide or what's from the teaching package. A lot of time they try to put in some of the live examples, and I think that makes learning a lot more fun and exciting rather than just learning the plain old language and learning knowledge. I think this is what I appreciate quite a bit when I was studying. I don't know if you feel the same way or.
Exactly the same. I actually didn't feel like I was in school because the amount of time studying was relatively little compared to the amount of time spent doing all the other stuff. And I think that is what's great about the education here. We of course NTU is slightly further from compared to the rest of Singapore. But it's because of that then hall life comes into play, right? And because of that we are kind of in a small I would say confined community, where definitely the weekdays are kind of spent in NTU. And with that we do have a lot of opportunities to explore different clubs as we have mentioned, and also even just making new friends and going out for drinks or meals, and that is actually is not difficult at all because of the time that we spend in NTU. And so I think that's really don't have to worry. I mean, there are a lot of NTU provides a lot of opportunities for you to have a very great student life
Yeah,
in here.
for sure.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
think the life portion is what's emphasized.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life before
Okay,
you go
okay. So
out to work.
as a professor, let's pull it back to the curriculum.
Yeah, I mean,
So in terms of curriculum, in terms of the rigor, right? Was it very stressful in class itself? I mean, go ahead before I mean,
Yeah. yeah, maybe
Caris
Caris can
during,
share from.
you know,
Oh gosh, okay. To me, I thought it was okay. Yeah, I don't think that it was something that was not manageable.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed attending the lessons, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I thought that I think according to what they were saying, I think the rigor is definitely there.
Yeah.
So whilst we had a lot of time compared to, I guess, coming from JC, right, where you're very confined,
Yeah.
attending school from very early to late in the evening, there were a lot of pockets of time that was available. So I think back to school, of course, some of the topics are very new. You know, whether is it in accounting or legal, those are things that were never ever taught before. So there's definitely a steep learning curve. However, I thought that the way it has been conducted, as well as I think the group work and project work and all that, really helped to bring the ideas back in, right? So I thought that was actually very useful.
I think you bring up a very important issue which I have received not from here but from prior open houses and talking to prospective students. There is a fear that you need to know a little bit about what you're going to learn coming in, right? And as you say, Caris, that you like things like law, things like accountancy, you haven't been taught in poly or in JC, right? But what would be your advice to overcome this fear, which is really not founded at all? Because when you're coming to the university, of course you're going to get into a new area, a new discipline, right? And your foundation in the sciences or in the arts or whatever, right? It's just that, the foundation, right? So maybe you can have some advice for our prospective students who are coming to accountancy or business and they have never touched any of these marketing, OB, law.
Yeah, I think my take on this is really that, you know, you go to school to learn something.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't go to attend a class thinking that you need to know something to attend a class, because it's counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and there's a period of time before you have to take the exam anyway. So it's okay to start with knowing nothing. And that's the purpose of going to school.
Yes.
Right? So and I think it's also something that I always encourage my kids, to be honest. Like, it's like, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to get things wrong, because it's okay. It's okay. It's really, really okay.
Right.
Yeah. And just take it one step at a time, right? Yeah. So
I think that's very powerful, because this is your last chance in the university, right?
Yeah.
To fail and learn from it,
Yes.
right?
absolutely.
Because once you go out into the working world, that's it, no? Right or not?
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Of course.
Yeah.
It's,
Definitely.
it's a fine line between keeping your job and losing it.
yeah, right? So, I mean, I've been trying to get that message across for a long time, but thank you for expounding this for me. Right? Chong Lian?
Yeah, I would resonate, I think, with what other points that Caris have shared earlier on, is that, in fact, I think more so for guys, right? Because of the 2 years of national service that you have, you're really coming in with a blank slate. Like, you have, all you can remember is probably what we learned in the national service, and it's really hard to try to adapt to school, right, to university. But I think that's where the foundational modules in MBS comes handy, right? And if I'm not wrong, recently there's a newly developed kind of interdiscipline kind of modules that's over there, and for me, the year one modules it sets a very good base foundation for you, and over the course of 13 weeks, right, professors will really take their time in explaining the starting from a very basic, very fundamental, and then before moving on to some of the more I would say, tougher part of the curriculum. And I think that's how the curriculum is being structured, right, over here at MBS. So really, don't worry too much on not knowing anything. In fact, not knowing anything might be good because you don't have any biases, right,
Yeah,
coming into
that's
the
true.
course. You don't have any notion or any thing in mind that could actually affect what you're gonna learn, right, coming into MBS. I think what maybe the number one advice I'll have, and in fact that's something I always shared even when I was a senior, I was sharing with my juniors, that always have an open mindset.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important because coming into the school, you're gonna receive vast amount of information, right? You're gonna have a lot of opportunity, but having that open mindset will allow you to take in all this information and also allows you to really explore anything that you want, right? Don't close your options, don't close your doors on anything. I think that's something that works for me, right, when I was a student, and maybe hopefully it does works for you as well.
And I just want to add that everyone really starts off. Most people actually start off with on the same footing, and unless you really intentionally pre-study everything, which as Kaish has mentioned is really not advised. Okay, everyone starts off the same, and along the way, of course, some people may learn faster. And I think especially for accountancy, that there will be people who finds it more intuitive than others. But it's really nothing to fear because the peers around you, we are all there to help. And from what I heard, actually MBS has this peer tutoring program now.
Yes, they do now.
Yeah, and it kind of started off with accountancy, right? Like basic accounting modules, but I've heard that it has since expanded. And that is the kind of help that you, as an undergraduate, or would actually expect, or would actually be able to, be rendered, when you come to MBS, and having peers who are of the same, the same age, going through the same experiences, teach you something that you may not have gotten when when doing your tutorials. It really provides a fresh perspective, and also at the same time, there is that form of camaraderie that is formed when you do understand the person who's being who's being the peer tutor, and those are all the small things that eventually adds up and builds to your MBS experience.
Yeah. So this for maybe Chongyang and Cheris, this peer tutoring thing I think started about a year or two ago, right? Where we find that we needed to support some of our, at least it was an initiative, right, in supporting the students who didn't quite grasp, right, the topics of some challenging courses. Right? And as you know, there are a few challenging courses like financial management, year one, accounting 101, the stats course.
Stats, yes.
Yeah. So especially the stats course, where coming in, you may not have the math grounding, right? So we did two things here. One is from this past AY, academic year, right? We are offering a math refresher course.
Wow.
Right? So if you don't have like a H1 level math or a poly, this minimum poly math coming in, we will train you within the span of like 1 week, right, to a H1 level math, so that you can coast along with all our quantitatives, right? Because our curriculum is becoming, at least we're infusing more quantitative topics into the curriculum, right? So you need that math background. So that's one, right? Once we put that in, then the peer tutoring will kick in, right? Because, I mean, if you don't use the math, if you don't apply the math, right, to that particular context, right, the translation may be somewhat difficult because the H1 math that you do in JC or even in poly, right, it's in a different context. The problems are different. The thinking is different, right? So the problem solving aspect of it needs to kick in. So that's where the peer tutors come in, right? And we are very happy lah. We put out a call for peer tutors and we get a lot.
A lot of volunteers.
Right.
Okay.
So that's good. So now we are moving that peer tutoring to the second year courses and third year courses and stuff like that. Right. So coming back to issue, did you all do internships when you were in
Yeah,
Plenty,
definitely.
plenty.
Plenty. Okay, so let me then push out these questions, right? And we can, maybe Leslie, what's your internship experience?
Okay, so
So there are two, right? One is a PA and the other is the additional internship, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
you start with the
that's
PA
right.
first.
So for myself, for my PA, I did it at the local bank, and it was, I believe, sourced with the, with the guidance with the guidance of our career MBS career
Yep.
office, and it was actually a 10-week program where I was attached to one of the departments. I was actually doing retail products, focusing on structured products, and it was a very interesting experience because before I even got in, I didn't even know that there was such a thing called structured products. Of course, I know that there were something like there were bonds. I know bonds, I know stocks, but wow, then a combination of that like comes in, and I'm like lost, but I think because at that time we took our PA, I think during our second year.
Yeah, but that's changed, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So I believe it has since changed, but it hasn't changed the fact that I think MBS really gives us a good foundation and a good ground for us to go into our internships and learn fast. I may know nothing then, but I think with the rigor that the academic rigor that MBS courses has put into place, I'm able to really take that and apply it into my internship experience and learn about all the things that learn about all the structured products that I need to know, and apply them to my project very, very quickly. So that's something I appreciate a lot.
So just to interject there, we moved our professional attachment, right, which is the compulsory internship, to year one, because we did not want students to, we wanted students to start exploring their career options, right? So unlike Chongyang, who actually knew he wanted to get into banking, right? Many students come in don't really know what career path they should take, right? So even in accountancy, for example, right, you have the choice of going to the Big Four, you have the choice of going into accountancy in a bank, right? Or you can even go into like a non-accountancy profession with an accountancy degree and do well, right? So we need to open up that career exploration, right? Expose them to different areas as soon as possible to get them thinking. So that's why we moved it to the end of their first year, right? So and then that allows you multiple other internships along the way, all right? And to pick up experience. Go ahead.
If I could just interrupt. So I think even before that was being moved to year one as being compulsory, back at my time is compulsory in year two. But even without that, I think a lot of my peers, if you could, I think it's probably the same for Leslie. A lot of our peers have already went for internship. And in fact, I still remember going for a class or module in my semester 2, and all my group mates were talking about the internship they got and everything. And then I was like, am I missing something? So that's when I started looking for internship as well. And maybe share a little bit of my first internship, and it was completely unrelated to finance. In fact, back then I knew that I wanted an internship that is not finance, because I wanted to see, hey, maybe there could be other options out there.
Exactly.
And something
that's
that
the point.
I might fall in love with, right? And actually I went into HR. It was a headhunting firm, and that was an opportunity, in fact, was shared by a career office, and I applied. And luckily enough, I was able to secure internship. And in the internship, I learned quite a bit on, and in fact, as an intern, I was given quite a bit of responsibility. I was able to speak to potential candidates. I was able to lead conversations with clients that we are looking for talents for. And I think that kind of experience, when I bring it back to school after the internship, it was very precious, very valuable, because it allows me to appreciate whatever that I've learned in class, right, a lot more by being out in the corporate world. I think that to me will be the most important takeaway, if I could say.
Karis, do you remember your internship?
Yes, baby. Yeah, so I had my internship with one of the Big Four.
So yeah, you're an accountancy grad.
Yeah, I was
Yes,
in accountancy. So I was quite fortunate to, I guess, secure that internship. And it was with, although it was not in the audit department, it was actually with the, I think it was the corporate finance department. And within that department, I think they obviously had the M&A advisory, and they also had a restructuring kind of a team to basically help kind of resuscitate some of the companies which are kind of like in default or in situations where they're in liquidation and things like that. So I was attached to that department, and I was also very fortunate in that I actually had the opportunity to actually be at the client's office, right? So that's where you get to interact with the finance manager, you know, as well as get to understand and see kind of like real world documents, right? As opposed to, you know, things that we learn from textbooks and in school. So I thought that experience was actually very, very valuable. And also very fortunately, I think it's really through all these internships and all that, that's how we secure our careers, right? Our job opportunities. So I was blessed that I got a job offer from the company, but subsequently I actually went to join a bank instead.
So just before we answer this question, I'll share how you found your current job, right? Let me do a pitch for our current innovation. Right? We found that a lot of the students were very interested in internships, right? And they would take an LOA, right, to do the internships. I hope none of you did that, right?
I did.
Oh, you did, right?
I did, yeah.
So this was to address that kind of problem, right? Because when you take an LOA to do an internship, you extend your candidature.
I squeezed my curriculum.
Okay, or squeeze your curriculum and stress yourself out,
Yeah.
which then leads to the previous question about work-life balance. So to maintain that work-life balance and to make sure that you complete within the 3 years, because that was what you decided, one of our plus points were when coming in, right? We designed a work-study program, right, where we allow the student a minimum of 25 weeks to a maximum of like 35 weeks, or even push it to 45 weeks, but the extra bit is not credit bearing, right? But the 35 weeks, right, is credit bearing. So we take it off from your unrestricted electives, right? So you are at the work site learning about that particular role, right? Developing your skills, applying your skills, problem solving, right? And getting credit at the same time, right? So that's to solve, like Leslie's problem of really taking time off from school, doing internships, and then coming back, right, to carry on or squeeze, which is really suboptimal.
Oh, I wish I got something like this.
Yeah.
Back then.
I mean, innovations come because we see problems,
Feedbacks
feedback and stuff like that, and move on, right? So coming back to this question, maybe Leslie and Chong Liang, how did you get your job? And then I'll ask Caris about how she found her job, and then how she became an employer, right? That's it.
So early on we were talking about how most of your penultimate year internship is pretty important, because usually you get conversion over there, and that's how you find your job offer, right? And that's what happened to me. So I was interning actually in HSBC, so in my penultimate year, and fortunate enough, I got a full-time offer after completing the internship, and eventually after graduation I moved into the management associate program of HSBC, and from there I actually rotated across different teams within the wealth management domain, and of course, right, I learned quite broadly across the different functions, how different function comes together to help one another to operate, right, within the bank itself. Eventually I rolled off the program and I became an investment counselor. And I was investment counselor about 1 year, and that's when an opportunity in StanChart came out, right? And I and through interviews and stuff, I got the job offer, and that's where I am now. So yeah, so maybe just share a little bit of what I'm doing for the layman, right? to simplify things and everything. It's very much in my role. What I do is try to formulate the view, right, the investment view for the bank, and that view is being communicated to all our clients, and that view is being adopted by all our internal stakeholders, right? And of course includes your relationship managers, your investment counselors, and just to have a very unified kind of image over there. And of course, how we derive that view, it comes from different channels. One is that through the research we do, of course, through talking, engagement with our traders, with our stakeholders, with our partners. So yeah, that's just a quick glimpse of what I'm doing right now. But I think comparison to Leslie, he's within the tech e-commerce space.
Yeah.
That's probably more exciting than the mainstream finance, right? That's a bit boring.
No, just I guess just different, but equally exciting. So for myself, I realize I always have the problem. I don't really know what I want to do until very late in life compared to like Zhong Liang, for example. So for me, after the said professional attachment, I went on to venture into other space. I did corporate finance, doing deal sourcing and valuation. Then after that, I actually spent 6 months, the LA in MAS. And kind of very different experiences. But I was like, after all that, I'm like, there should be something more. And that's what caught. I kind of switched my focus to the accountancy track. I was thinking, is there something within accountancy that I wanted to do? And of course, for personal reasons, I said no to Big Four. And that kind of opened my options to commercial accounting. And actually, that's how that kind of opened me up to my current job, C, where I'm actually a finance management associate. It's a 2-year program consisting of 4 6-month rotations, where I get to explore different aspects of finance. And yes, finance, there are different aspects beyond financial reporting. Okay, so I was even involved in C Group's setup of the SG Digital Bank, and also currently I'm actually doing controllership as well. Doing focusing on the setup of new markets. Also very very exciting opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten because without my degree, definitely.
Okay, I think for myself, I think I mentioned earlier about my internship. So I was with one of the Big Four, and I had an offer to join them after that. But at the same time, I think because the school was also conducting a lot of recruitment with external parties. So one of them was actually Stanchart. So I actually went through that whole process of interviewing and all that. It was actually very, very intense. And I got into one of the, you went through the HSBC one. So it was quite intense. And I was blessed that I was offered a job in a bank. So I was kind of like deciding between the two job offers, and kind of decided to take the plunge and join banking instead. So I think kind of like fast forward that, within the bank itself, because they had like, presence in 90 over countries and, 90,000 different employees, right, within a group. So there were a lot of opportunities to kind of move around, whether it's in front office or back office or across geographically. So I actually moved to China as well for a short period of time, also with the bank. And after the stint, I came back into Singapore and went into corporate finance business. So I think the career basically kind of like just evolves, based on your experience, and very importantly, networking. It's really about who you know, and a lot of the so-called movements within my career were actually uninterviewed. Right, it's not like, oh, there's a job. Referrals, yeah. So you don't go for interviews with people. It was more like referrals, and as a result, the job opportunities come out, and that's how kind of move, from one to the next. Yeah.
Let me ask you this particular question that came up, right? As an employer, right? What are the skills in our graduates you are looking for?
Oh, okay. So that's a very good question, Prof. Damian. So I think as an employer, when we the way we approach, you know, the hiring of fresh grads and all that is really, ultimately it's about the attitude of the person, because we definitely do believe that, you know, skills can also be taught on the job, and every single job function is quite different, but at the same time, you know, I think with the rigor of the education system, you know, that one has actually gone through, I think they are already of a certain level to start, you know, coming into the company. So ultimately, it's really very much the soft skills that is very important, you know. And if we really drill down, right, is, you know, do they have a good attitude? You know, do they have a passion in terms of what they do? Do they know? And do they believe in the vision and the mission of the company? Because if it's something that it doesn't resonate with them, it's going to be very, very challenging for the person, not just for the company, right, but also for the individual coming in, you know, contributing to the success of the company.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I think by and large we try and do all of, at least in terms of the softer skills, right? As we build the rigor, the softer skills cannot be compromised.
For sure.
Right. You want to share your experiences with how we go about building the softer skills for our students?
And I definitely echo Carrie's view, is that the soft skills are very important, even more important than any other thing. And I remember when I entered into HS, I was talking to some of my colleagues, and of course, I being a very curious person, I asked them, so what made you chose me, right, to join the program? And something that said till today, it left a very memorable. I think something is very memorable is that they said that, oh, I chose you because I felt that you're someone that was very nice to be with, and I then reflect back on that, and I realized that's something very important, right? Because the hiring manager they're going to interview with, or the team members going to interview with, they're going to be spending a lot of time with you. In fact, the bulk of the whole day, right, a weekday, is probably spent with your colleagues, right? Even more so than your family members sometimes. So they really need to find someone that they could interact with, they could hang out with, right? And how then the next question is, how then can you be a much more fun and much more enjoyable person? I think that comes from your memories, right? The experiences that you have. I think that's where MBS comes in very helpful, very handy in building that, because one thing is that you have a lot of activities that you do in MBS itself, right? And it offers a lot of opportunity for you. And these become stories that you could tell when interviewing. This becomes part of you, right? And that's define who you are as a person. I think that's something that's most important to me. But I don't know, maybe Leslie knows.
For myself, I think, looking back at my interview experiences, I think one thing that a lot of people find daunting is, you know, wherever you go for management associate program interviews especially, they have this assessment center. You know, it's very daunting because literally you are just thrown into, you know, like
Cases.
thrown into cases. That is, you know, the first time you are looking at them, and you have to work with, you know, people that you don't know, strangers, you know, to try to solve and arrive at the case objective. And I thought that, you know, when I actually attended the case interview, actually, or the assessment centers, the main things that I guess they are trying to test, you know, using cases are really just three things: project management, stakeholder management, you know, working with strangers, as well as communication, you know, when you do your presentation. And, you know, I realized that on hindsight that really all three are being honed, you know, in MBS. For the first two, it's really about projects, you know, the projects that we do in school. And I guess many modules actually have their own, have their projects, you know, as part of the evaluation criteria. Yeah, and with that, you know, you do work with your classmates. Sometimes your classmates are not chosen by you, they are assigned. You know, and that really means working with people that you don't know from the start, you know, for a period of time, you know, to try to, of course, complete the project and get the best marks that you can. Also with that, you know, stakeholder and project management is being covered. And finally, on communication, I understand that there is oral participation. I think that's what it's called.
Class participation.
Class participation. Yes, that's right. So But of course, it seems like, oh, I'm being forced to speak out every day. But actually, it's really not the case. It's about the fact that you have something interesting or an insight that you want to share, and you're not afraid to share it out and to just speak out in class and, have people respond to that. So I think, those are really very essential aspects of education which NPS has built in to try to build our soft skills.
I think on that note, I would like to end it here because our time has run out, right? So let me it's gone fast, right? So let me thank Karis, Chongyang, and Leslie for joining us today. We have our Zoom rooms open with our various specializations and our majors. The career office is also being represented. So are other opportunities, right, that you might want to learn about. So with that, thank you very much, folks, for this enjoyable discussion. Right? And thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Hope to see you, right, at NBS this coming August. Right? Goodbye.
Choose NBS because it empowers you to be your best, because it helps you discover a better you for the future that you dream of.
Basically, to find ourselves and to learn how you can make an impact in this world.
Come to NBS to experience a different you. See you at NBS.
See you at NBS.
See you at NBS. See you at NBS.
I look forward to seeing you at NBS.